The temperature in the compliance board's conference room seemed to drop another degree as I pushed the manila folder across the polished mahogany table. Inside lay the proof of my husband's betrayal, and not just of me, but of multiple women who sat nervously along the wall behind me. I could feel their eyes on my back, a strange sisterhood forged in shared deception. Mrs. Wilson, the head investigator, leaned forward, her glasses catching the fluorescent light. Please walk us through the timeline of these transfers. Of course. My voice was steady, my hands no longer trembled. Across the table, Tom's eyes never left mine. The shock on his face had long since given way to cold fury. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the man I married 20 years ago, handsome even now at 54, his salt and pepper hair still thick, his blue eyes still piercing. But that man had proven to be a carefully crafted illusion. It began last March with a transfer of $80,000. I began, my voice professionally detached as if presenting a marketing campaign to clients, followed by similar amounts each month for the past year. In total, approximately $1.15 million. Tom suddenly slammed his palm on the table. It was our joint account. I had every right. Mr. Wilson, his lawyer warned quietly, a thin man with nervous eyes who seemed to shrink in his expensive suit. Actually, I continued, sliding forward bank statements highlighted in yellow and pink, organized, color-coded, just like the marketing presentations I'd been perfecting for 20 years. The accounts were funded primarily through my income. Thomas's contributions were minimal, mainly because he was busy funding his other accounts. I looked directly at my husband of 20 years, the man I'd once believed would grow old with me, the man who had planned to abandon me for a woman half my age using my own money. Other accounts? The investigator raised an eyebrow, a hint of surprise breaking through her professional demeanor. My friend Olivia, the director of Second Chance, produced another stack of papers. Her hands were steady, her movements deliberate, the confidence of someone who had seen this story play out too many times before. We've documented at least 3 separate instances where Mr. Wilson created similar arrangements with other women using the same method of financial manipulation, she explained. At 58, Olivia carried herself with the authority of someone who had fought many battles and won most of them. Tom's face went slack. The man who had always been so composed, so charming at dinner parties, now looked trapped. That's not, you can't prove. But we can. Nathan spoke up from the end of the table, his glasses sliding down his nose as he pushed a thick folder forward. I've been tracking these irregularities for months. Each case follows the same pattern. The conference room door opened with a soft click, and Vanessa Cruz walked in, followed by 2 women I hadn't met until yesterday. Tom's chair scraped back so violently it nearly toppled. What are they doing here? He demanded, his voice cracking with genuine fear for the first time. Providing testimony, Olivia said calmly. Meet Grace Parker and Sofia Rodriguez. They have interesting stories about promises you made. Promises funded by other people's money. Grace, a petite woman with auburn hair pulled back in a sensible bun, clutched her purse in her lap like a shield. Sophia stood straighter, her nursing uniform still on from her morning shift, her dark eyes never leaving Tom's face. As the women began to speak, I closed my eyes briefly. How had we come to this point? 2 months ago, I'd been planning our 20th anniversary trip. Now I was orchestrating my husband's professional destruction. But then, 2 months ago, I discovered that the man I married hadn't truly existed at all. Flashback of the discovery. The nursing home bill trembled in my hands as I stared at our bank balance that didn't match what should have been there. $80,000, that's how much Tom had been siphoning from our joint account each month for the past year. I trusted him with our finances. After all, he was the investment consultant, and I was just the marketing director who brought home the bigger paycheck. My grandmother's photograph watched me from my desk, her gentle smile now seeming to hold a warning I'd ignored for years. Graham had never quite warmed to Tom, though she'd been too kind to say so directly. He reminds me of someone from a movie, she'd said once. All perfect on the outside. Now I understood what she'd meant. The nursing facility's invoice, $4,200 for this month, suddenly seemed insurmountable as I realized what had happened to our savings. My stomach clenched into a tight knot. Graham had raised me after my parents died. She'd worked double shifts as a nurse to put me through college, had never once complained about the sacrifices she made. And now, when she needed me most, I might not be able to keep her in the facility where she was comfortable, where the staff knew how to calm her when the dementia made her confused and frightened. Margaret Wilson, I whispered to myself in our dim study, the antique desk lamp casting shadows across the Victorian walnut bookshelves Tom had insisted were investments. Until 10 minutes ago, you thought you had the perfect marriage. I ran my fingers over the embossed letterhead of the nursing home invoice, trying to ground myself in something tangible as my world tilted on its axis. 20 years of marriage, 20 years of shared meals, vacation photos, dinner parties, and quiet Sunday mornings with coffee and crosswords suddenly felt like an elaborate stage set designed to hide what was happening behind the curtain. Maggie? Tom called from downstairs, his voice carrying that warm timbre that had first attracted me to him. I'm heading out to meet Nathan for drinks. Don't wait up. The same Nathan he claimed to meet every Thursday for months. Have fun, I managed, my voice surprisingly steady despite my shaking hands. Don't be too late. I heard the jingle of his keys, the soft thud of the front door, and then the purr of his BMW pulling out of our driveway. Only then did I allow myself to fold forward, pressing my forehead against the cool wood of my desk as the first tears came in not heaving sobs, but silent, burning drops that left dark circles on the nursing home bill. I'd only checked our accounts because our credit card had been declined at lunch with my best friend, Diane, a simple embarrassment that led to an earth-shattering discovery. The waiter had returned with my card, a look of awkward sympathy on his face, and whispered that it had been rejected. Diane had smoothly passed her own card before I could fumble through my wallet for another. Happens to me all the time, she lied kindly. But it had never happened to me. Not once in 20 years. My phone buzzed, the screen lighting up with Diane's name and a photo of us from law school graduation, her in her cap and gown, me there to cheer her on. Did you figure out what happened with the card? She asked, her voice carrying the precise diction she perfected in courtrooms. Oh, I figured it out, all right. I tried to laugh, but it came out as a sob. Tom's been stealing from me. What? Are you serious? Diane's voice, always controlled in front of judges and opposing counsel, rose an octave. How much? Enough to buy a small house in the Hamptons. I pulled up the calculator on my phone, punching in numbers as if the precise total might somehow make this reality more believable. Around $1.15 million, give or take. That son of a... Diane took a deep breath, and I could almost see her running a hand through her short salt and pepper hair, a habit from our college days that tension always triggered. I'm coming over right now. No, don't. He's out with Nathan tonight. I need to think. Out with Nathan again? Diane paused, and I could hear the skepticism in her voice. Diane had always been quicker than me to spot deception, a skill that made her an excellent family law attorney. Max, when was the last time you actually spoke to Nathan? My blood ran cold. The question was so obvious I should have asked it myself weeks ago. I scrolled through my phone contacts and hit Nathan's number before I could lose my nerve. He answered on the second ring. Maggie? Everything okay? His voice carried concern, and Nathan had always been kind, if somewhat rigid in his principles. The sort of man who would be uncomfortable with lies. Hey, Nathan. I forced cheerfulness into my voice, years of client presentations helping me mask the tremor that threatened to break through. Quick question, how's drinks with Tom? A confused silence followed. Drinks with Tom? I haven't seen Tom in weeks. I'm actually in Chicago for a regional audit. The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet, the room suddenly too warm and too cold all at once. Oh, my mistake. Must have mixed up my days. Have fun in Chicago. I hung up before he could ask questions I wasn't ready to answer. My hands moved automatically to Tom's tablet on the side table, the device he often left at home since he had a separate one for work. He'd always insisted on handling our online banking, citing his financial expertise, but he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I'm the one who set up all our passwords when we first got married, including his email. The password our wedding date plus his mother's maiden name still worked. 5 minutes later, I was staring at email after email from someone named Vanessa Cruz. My vision blurred as I read through their exchanges. The money transfers, the hotel receipts, the promises of a future together once he'd saved enough to leave his controlling wife. Controlling. I almost laughed. In 20 years of marriage, I had never once questioned Tom's expenses, never monitored his movements, never checked his phone. I had trusted him completely. What a fool I'd been. My phone buzzed again. Diane, I'm going to kill him, she declared before I could speak, the protective fierceness I'd known since we were 18 coming through clearly. No, I said, my voice eerily calm as a plan began forming in my mind. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by something colder and more focused. I have a better idea. I opened another email from Vanessa, this one containing a selfie. She was beautiful, probably in her early 30s, with a kind of confident smile that suggested she actually believed Tom's lies about his unhappy marriage. In the background, I could make out an office with marketing awards on the wall. Another tab in Tom's browser was still open to her LinkedIn profile, Cruise Marketing Consultants, founded 3 years ago. Diane, I said, remember that nonprofit I did marketing work for last year? Second Chance, the one that helps women rebuild their lives after economic abuse? Yeah, Olivia's organization. Why? A cold smile spread across my face as I began typing Tom's banking password into our investment account portal. Because I think it's time for some karmic redistribution. Maggie, Diane's tone was both worried and impressed. What are you planning? Nothing illegal, I assured her, though my fingers were flying across the keyboard, accessing accounts I hadn't checked in months. Just a little lesson in consequences. He wants to hide money from his wife? Fine. But he's about to learn that karma has a way of coming full circle. I heard the garage door opening downstairs. Tom was home early, much earlier than his usual drinks with Nathan would allow. He's back, I whispered. I'll call you tomorrow. I quickly closed the tablet and slipped the bank statement into my bedside drawer. Footsteps on the stairs, the familiar pattern of his walk, firm, confident, the stride of a man who believed himself above consequences. I grabbed a book from my nightstand and pretended to read. Tom appeared in the doorway, his collar slightly askew, a faint hint of unfamiliar perfume clinging to his jacket. Hey, babe. His smile was easy, practiced. Nathan had to cancel tonight, so I came home early. Nathan had to cancel. Another lie, smooth as silk, with no hint of hesitation or guilt. I wondered how many thousands of similar lies he'd told me over the years, and how many I'd simply accepted without question. I looked up and smiled, channeling every ounce of acting ability I possessed. That's too bad. How about I make us some tea? He relaxed visibly, probably relieved I wasn't asking questions. Sounds perfect. As I headed downstairs, my mind was already racing ahead. Tom thought he was so clever, playing both sides, building his nest egg with my hard-earned money. But he'd forgotten something crucial about me. I didn't get to where I am by being naive. Tomorrow I'd start making calls, but tonight I'd serve him tea with honey, kiss him goodnight, and let him think his secret was safe. After all, revenge, like the best marketing campaigns, requires careful planning and perfect timing. And I was very, very good at my job. Flashback the early years. You were always the smart one, Maggie, my father used to say before cancer took him my senior year of college. Don't let anyone dim your light. I thought of those words the night I met Thomas Wilson at a charity gala in 2001. I was 31, already a rising star at the marketing firm where I'd worked since graduation. He was 34, charming in a tailored suit that I would later learn cost more than my monthly student loan payment. The event was for a literacy nonprofit, the ballroom of the Westmore Hotel transformed with thousands of tiny lights and centerpieces made from vintage books. I was there representing my firm, which had donated the marketing materials. Tom arrived late, during the silent auction, moving through the crowd with the easy confidence of someone who belonged in any room he entered. You're not bidding? He'd asked, appearing beside me as I examined a first edition of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice that was well beyond my budget. Just admiring, I admitted. I don't have $3,000 to spend on a book, even one I love. It's your favorite? He smiled. the kind of smile that reached his eyes and created small crinkles at the corners. Since I was 15, I extended my hand. Margaret Wilson, Thomas Wilson. His handshake was firm but not overpowering. Investment consultant for Wilson and Reed. But enough about me. Tell me about your work. And he'd actually listened. Most men I dated quickly tired of hearing about market segmentation and campaign analytics. But Tom had leaned forward, asked insightful questions, remembered details from our conversation weeks later when he called to ask me to dinner. He's different, I told Diane over brunch 6 months into our relationship, the spring sun warming our table at our favorite sidewalk cafe. He better be, she'd said, already suspicious of men in expensive suits with perfect smiles. You deserve different. Diane had known me since our freshman year at NYU when we'd been assigned as roommates, me on scholarship, her from a comfortable Upper East Side family. We should have had nothing in common, but we bonded over a shared love of old movies and a determination to succeed in fields dominated by men. Growing up in our blue-collar neighborhood in Queens, we'd both seen too many women trapped in marriages that drained them financially, emotionally, spiritually. My own mother had stayed with my father through thick and thin, mostly thin, but theirs had been a partnership of equals. Mom waited tables while Dad worked construction, both bringing home what they could, both making decisions together. They died within months of each other, Dad from a heart attack while I was in college, Mom from breast cancer just before my graduation. Life is short, Margaret, my mother had told me from her hospital bed. Be sure about the people you let into your heart. Not just about what they say, but what they do. Tom proposed on our 1-year anniversary with a ring I later discovered he'd bought on my credit card. I found the statement a month later and laughed it off. He must have forgotten to switch cards, I told myself. The first red flag I chose to ignore. We married at the Westmore Hotel where we'd met. A small ceremony with Diane as my maid of honor and my grandmother beaming from the front row. Tom's mother sat stiffly on the other side, a thin woman with anxious eyes who seemed surprised when Tom hugged her. My father couldn't make it, Tom explained, though I'd never met the man and Tom rarely spoke of him. Years later, I would learn that wasn't entirely true. His father hadn't been invited, having abandoned Tom and his mother when Tom was 12. We merged our finances after the wedding, as my income began to substantially outpace his. It makes sense for us to pool resources. He argued over dinner at our new apartment, a spacious 2-bedroom in a dormant building. That's what marriage is, sharing everything. I agreed, thinking of my parents, not knowing that Tom's idea of sharing meant taking what was mine and giving it to others. My dad taught me everything I know about investments, he told me once, during our honeymoon in Bali. Years later, I would discover just how true that statement was. Tom's father had abandoned his mother after draining their accounts, moving on to a younger woman and a new family, leaving Tom and his mother nearly destitute. But instead of learning to be different, Tom had learned his father's methods too well. You married up, his college friend had drunkenly told me at a Christmas party 5 years into our marriage. Tom always said he'd find a woman who could support the lifestyle he deserved. I'd laughed it off then, assumed it was the alcohol talking. But the comment had lodged somewhere in the back of my mind, a small stone that occasionally made its presence known. The plan unfolds. You're scary calm about this, Diane said, stirring her coffee as we sat in the back corner of a cafe 3 blocks from my office. It was the day after my discovery, and I'd barely slept, spending most of the night researching financial fraud and documenting every transfer I could find. If it were me, I'd have set his clothes on fire by now. I glanced around to make sure no one was within earshot. The cafe was busy with the morning rush, business people grabbing coffee before heading to their offices in the nearby financial district. Burning his designer suits would be satisfying for about 5 minutes. I want something that lasts. So, what's the plan? Diane leaned forward, her eyes sparkling with that same look she got when we used to plot revenge against mean girls in high school. She'd become a respected family law attorney, but part of her was still the scrappy girl from Queens who didn't back down from a fight. First, I need to figure out exactly how much he's been sending to this Vanessa person. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshots I'd taken, my hand steady now, the shock giving way to methodical determination. Look at these messages. He's promising her a fortune. Diane scrolled through them, her expression darkening. What a piece of work. Just a few more months, baby, and we'll have enough to start our new life. Gross. She looked up at me. Have you talked to Olivia yet? Meeting her for lunch tomorrow? If anyone knows how to handle this legally, it's her. I took a sip of my Americano, the bitter taste matching my mood. The tricky part will be moving the money without Tom noticing. Speaking of Tom, Diane nodded toward the cafe entrance. I turned to see Nathan Cooper walking in, looking exhausted from his Chicago trip. Nathan had worked with Tom for nearly a decade, their desks just 20 feet apart according to Tom. They weren't close friends, but they occasionally socialized, usually with other colleagues from the firm. Perfect timing, Nathan. I called out, waving him over. How was the audit? He headed our way, coffee in hand, confusion flickering across his face. With his receding hairline and wire-rimmed glasses, Nathan looked more like an academic than a financial planner. Productive, but jet lag's killing me. Listen, about that call yesterday. Join us, I interrupted, pulling out a chair. We were just talking about Tom's latest investment strategy. Nathan sat down, his discomfort obvious. He glanced between Diane and me, clearly sensing something was wrong. Maggie, It's okay, I said softly. I know he's not really meeting you for drinks on Thursdays. Relief and guilt wore on Nathan's face. He pushed his glasses up his nose, a nervous habit I'd noticed the few times we'd socialized together. I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how. He's been my colleague for 10 years. I get it. I touched his arm. I'm not angry with you, but I do need your help. Anything, he said immediately, and I believed him. Nathan Cooper had always struck me as a man who valued rules and order. Finding himself unwittingly part of Tom's deception must have been eating at him. Has Tom mentioned any unusual transactions at work? Large transfers? New accounts? Nathan's expression changed, the discomfort giving way to something more serious. Actually, yes. He's been asking me to sign off on some irregular wire transfers. Said they were for a new client, but the paperwork seemed off. Diane and I exchanged looks. How off? Like potentially illegal off. Nathan lowered his voice, leaning in so we wouldn't be overheard. I've been documenting everything, just in case. Yesterday, he asked me to approve another transfer $50,000 to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. My heart raced. When's the transfer scheduled for? Next Friday. Nathan ran a hand through his thinning hair. I've been trying to figure out how to report it without destroying his career, but don't report it yet, I said quickly. I need you to delay the approval. Can you do that? Just for a week? He nodded slowly. Yeah, I could say the compliance department needs additional verification, but Maggie, what are you planning? My phone buzzed a text from Tom. Taking Vanessa to Mauritius next month. Need to move some funds around. Don't check the accounts for a few days. Doing some rebalancing. I showed the text to Diane and Nathan. Mauritius. Diane scoffed. With your money, not anymore. I stood up, gathering my things, a calm purpose settling over me. Nathan, stall that transfer. Diane, I need you to help me set up a meeting with. Who? Vanessa? Nathan asked. I smiled grimly. I think it's time she learned where her vacation fund really comes from. How are you going to manage that without Tom knowing? Nathan asked. Simple. I pulled up Vanessa's social media profile and turned the phone so they could see. Her business page showed a polished young woman with confident eyes and a professional smile. According to this, she works at Cruise Marketing Consultants. Guess who just hired them for their next campaign? Diane's eyes widened. Your company? As of this morning. I shouldered my bag. Sometimes karma needs a little push in the right direction. Be careful, Nathan warned, concern evident in his eyes. If Tom figures out what you're doing, he won't, I assured him. He's too busy planning his romantic getaway to notice that his wife is about to become his worst nightmare. As I walked back to my office, I typed out a response to Tom's text. Of course, honey. Take all the time you need. Love you. Let him think I was oblivious. Let him plan his perfect escape with his perfect young girlfriend. By the time he realized what was happening, it would be too late to stop it. My phone buzzed again, an email confirmation for tomorrow's lunch with Olivia Jenkins at Second Chance. The pieces were falling into place. Tom had spent a year building his house of cards, thinking he was untouchable. But he'd forgotten the first rule of marketing: know your audience. And I knew exactly who needed to see this show when the curtain finally went up. Meeting with Olivia, so he's been using your income to fund his affair? Olivia's fork paused halfway to her mouth, her eyes narrowing. We were sitting in her office, takeout containers spread across her desk. Second Chance operated out of a converted brownstone in a transitional neighborhood, the space modest but welcoming. Photos of women lined the walls, survivors. Olivia called them, not victims. The best part, I pulled up Tom's email on my tablet, turning it so she could see. He's been telling Vanessa the money comes from his investment genius. Look at this message. Baby, your faith in me is why I work so hard. Another successful trade. Olivia's eyes narrowed as she read, decades of experience with similar cases evident in her unfazed expression. At 58, she carried herself with the weary determination of someone who had seen too much but refused to become cynical. Her cropped silver hair and minimal makeup spoke of a woman who valued substance over appearance. And you want to redirect the funds to our organization? Every penny he's stolen plus whatever he's planning to take? She leaned back in her chair, assessing me. I leaned forward. The question is, can we do it legally? Actually, we can. Olivia pulled out a folder, placing it between us with deliberate precision. Since you're the primary earner and he's been misappropriating your income without consent, we have grounds. I've drawn up the paperwork. All we need is to document the transfers. My phone buzzed a text from Diane. Meeting set with Cruise Marketing tomorrow, 2 p.m. Vanessa confirmed. Perfect timing, I murmured, showing Olivia the text. Are you sure about meeting her? Olivia asked, concern creasing her brow. It could complicate things. I need to see her face when she realizes. The words caught in my throat, surprising me. Until that moment, I hadn't acknowledged how personally I was taking this betrayal. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the years of lies, the future Tom had planned without me, the complete disregard for our life together. My phone buzzed again. Tom, hey beautiful. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Working late. Another lie, so casually delivered. I typed back quickly. No problem. Girls' night with Diane anyway. Love you. The ease with which I could mirror his deception surprised me. But then, maybe I'd learn from the master. Olivia watched me with concern. How are you holding up? I'm fine. I straightened my spine, pushing down the momentary crack in my composure. Better than fine. I'm focused. That's what worries me. She handed me the folder. Just remember, revenge isn't always sweet. This isn't just about revenge. I stood up, gathering my things. It's about justice. For every woman who's ever been betrayed and gaslit by someone they trusted. As I said the words, I realized they were true. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Vanessa, who believed she was in love with a successful man who could give her a future. It was about Tom's previous victims, whoever they might be. It was about every woman who had been manipulated and used. I know that look, Olivia said, walking me to the door. Just be careful you don't lose yourself in this crusade. I won't. I promise. Though part of me wondered if that was yet another lie. I know exactly what I'm doing. Back at my office, I spent the afternoon preparing for tomorrow's meeting. Cruise Marketing's proposal sat on my desk, but my real focus was on the financial documents Nathan had sent over. Tom's paper trail was messy. He'd gotten cocky, thinking no one would look too closely. My computer pinged an email from Vanessa to Tom. Can't wait for Mauritius, but worried about the transfer delay. Everything okay? I smiled, forwarding it to Nathan. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. She's getting nervous, Nathan said. Tom's been hounding me about that transfer all day. Perfect. Keep stalling. Has he mentioned the compliance review? Yeah. He's freaking out. Keeps saying he needs the money by next week. Trust me, I said, a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. He won't be going anywhere next week. After hanging up, I opened my banking app. Tom thought he was clever with his transfers, but he'd forgotten who set up our online security questions. Within minutes, I had access to everything. The numbers made me sick, not just the money he'd taken, but the future he'd planned without me. House listings in Mauritius, joint investment accounts with Vanessa, even a new life insurance policy with her as the beneficiary. That last discovery felt like a physical blow. Had he been planning to have me out of the picture permanently? Or was it just another manipulation, a way to convince Vanessa of his commitment? My hand shook as I started the process Olivia had outlined. One by one, I began redirecting the funds to Second Chance's secure account. Not stealing, reclaiming. With each transfer, I documented everything meticulously, the way my father had taught me to keep records of every financial transaction, no matter how small. Keep your receipts, Maggie, he'd say. You never know when you'll need to prove where the money went. Dad would be proud of me now, I thought, as I completed the final transfer. Or would he? What would my kind, honest father say about the woman I'd become, coldly plotting revenge against the man I'd promised to love, for better or worse? But this was definitely worse than anything we'd vowed to endure together. This was betrayal on a scale I couldn't have imagined. Diane called just as I finished the last transfer. You ready for tomorrow? She asked. Almost. I pulled up Vanessa's social media again, studying the woman who'd believed she was building a future with my husband. Did you see her latest post? Sometimes the biggest blessings come in unexpected packages. If she only knew. Are you going to tell her everything? No. I closed my laptop. I'm going to let her discover it herself. I've left enough breadcrumbs. Once she starts pulling on the threads. You're scary good at this, Diane said, a note of concern in her voice. Remind me never to cross you. I learned from the best. I grabbed my coat. Tom taught me everything I need to know about deception. As I drove home, I thought about the next phase of the plan. Tomorrow I'd meet Vanessa face to face. She'd see me as just another potential client, not knowing she was looking at the wife of the man she thought would give her everything. Tom was home when I arrived, working on his laptop in the kitchen. Our Victorian brownstone, purchased primarily with my bonus the year I made department head, was quiet except for the tapping of his keyboard. How was girls' night? He asked, barely looking up. Enlightening. I kissed his cheek, inhaling subtly. No unfamiliar perfume tonight. Maybe he'd been working late after all. The thought that he might occasionally tell the truth was oddly unsettling. How was work? Frustrating. Some issues with compliance. He rubbed his temples. Nothing I can't handle. Compliance issues. At least that part was true. Of course not, I said soothingly. You always figure things out. He smiled, reaching for my hand, his touch once so familiar and comforting, now making my skin crawl. That's why I love you. You have so much faith in me. I squeezed his hand, thinking of all his emails to Vanessa with those exact words. Always, honey. Always. Tomorrow the real show would begin, but tonight I'd let him believe in his perfect plan one last time. I lay awake beside him later, listening to his steady breathing, wondering how many nights he'd done the same, planning his escape while I slept trusting beside him. Meeting Vanessa, the cruise marketing office was smaller than I'd expected, occupying half a floor in a converted warehouse building in a trendy part of town. The reception area was stylish but modest, a startup still finding its footing. Mrs. Wilson? The receptionist smiled. Ms. Cruise is ready for you. Right this way. I followed her down a short hallway decorated with framed marketing campaigns, noting with professional interest the quality of Vanessa's work. She had talent. I had to give her that. The conference room felt smaller than I'd expected. Vanessa sat across from me, professional and poised in a blazer that probably cost 3 months of her real salary, not the one Tom subsidized. She had no idea who I was, but I knew everything about her, down to her coffee order. Oat milk latte, extra shot. In person, she was even more striking than in her photos, early 30s, with intelligent eyes and the confident posture of someone who had built something from nothing. Under different circumstances, I might have liked her, might have even mentored her. Your proposal is impressive, I said, flipping through the presentation, especially the social media strategy. Thank you. She beamed with pride. I actually developed that section myself. I can tell. I pulled out my phone, making a show of checking something. Your personal accounts have quite the following. Very aspirational. Her smile faltered slightly. Oh, you've seen my social media? Hard to miss. I turned my phone around, showing her a recent post about manifesting dreams, especially that gorgeous watch in her latest photo. Carter, right? Yes. She touched the watch unconsciously, the tank model that retailed for over $25,000. A gift from someone special. Must be very special. I smiled. Those run about $30,000, don't they? My grandmother always said you can tell a lot about a relationship from the gifts exchanged. A flicker of unease crossed her face, quickly masked by professional composure. Before she could respond, my phone buzzed. Tom's name flashed on the screen. I let Vanessa see it before declining the call. Sorry, my husband. I placed the phone screen up on the table between us. He's been stressed about work lately. Something about compliance issues with transfers. The color drained from her face. Her hand, which had been reaching for her coffee cup, froze midair. I should check if my team needs me. Actually, I slid an envelope across the table, the heavy cream paper embossed with my initials M.V. Margaret Victoria Wilson. You might want to look at this first. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were printouts of Tom's transfers from our account to hers, along with his emails promising her the world with my money. I'd highlighted certain phrases in yellow, the same promises, often word for word, that he'd made to me 20 years ago. I don't understand, she whispered. These transfers are from my account, I finished. I'm Thomas Wilson's wife. The one he told you was controlling and financially irresponsible. She stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward, the crash echoing in the small room. This is inappropriate. I need to. Sit down, Vanessa. My voice was still wrapped in silk. Years of client negotiations helping me maintain calm even as I watched her world collapse. Unless you want the SEC to receive an anonymous tip about your involvement in financial fraud. She sank back into her righted chair, her professional demeanor crumbling. I didn't know, she said softly. He told me the money was from his investments. Tom's good at telling stories. I pulled out another document. But here's a real story for you. That transfer he promised for your Mauritius trip? It's not coming. What do you mean? Check your account. She grabbed her phone, fingers shaking as she pulled up her banking app. Her eyes widened, panic replacing shock. It's empty. Everything's gone. Not gone, I corrected. Redirected to a charity that helps women rebuild their lives after being deceived by men like Tom. You can't do that. Her voice rose, drawing glances from people passing by the glass-walled conference room. That money was promised to me. Actually, I can't, and I did. Legally. I stood up, gathering my things. By the way, Tom doesn't know yet. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to hear how you lost all his sorry my money. My phone buzzed again. Nathan, this time. I answered on speaker. Margaret? His voice was urgent. Tom's losing it. He just tried to force me to approve the transfer. When I refused, he threatened to report me for interference. Vanessa's face crumpled as reality crashed down around her. Let him, I said calmly. I'm sure the Financial Review Board would love to hear his explanation. After hanging up, I turned back to Vanessa. She seemed smaller now, her confidence replaced by confusion and hurt. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. She was as much Tom's victim as I was, in her own way. He'll probably call you soon, promising to fix this, I said, my tone softening slightly. But ask yourself, if he'd lied to his wife of 20 years, what makes you think he's been honest with you? Get out, she whispered, tears streaking her carefully applied makeup. Gladly. I headed for the door, then paused. Oh, Vanessa, that watch you're wearing? I'd hold on to it. It might be the only real thing he ever gave you. Back in my car, I sat for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel. The satisfaction I'd expected to feel was tempered by something else, a hollow emptiness where rage had been. Vanessa's devastation had been a mirror of my own, and seeing it reflected back at me brought no joy. I called Diane. How'd it go? She asked. Better than expected. Tom's about to. My phone beeped with another call. Speaking of the devil. Got to go. I switched lines. Hi, honey. What did you do? Tom's voice shook with rage, the controlled thought finally cracking. Nathan's blocking my transfers, my accounts are empty, and I just got a hysterical call from a client. A client? I kept my voice innocent. Or your girlfriend? Silence. We should talk about this at home, I said sweetly. I'll order dinner. How about that Thai place you took Vanessa to last month? The one you charged to our joint card? Margaret. See you at 7, darling. Don't be late. Oh, and Tom, better cancel that Mauritius booking. I hear the weather's terrible this time of year. I hung up and started my car, humming softly. The stage was set, the players were in position, and the final act was about to begin. Tom thought he was the director of this story, but he was about to learn who really called the shots. And I had a feeling the ending would surprise everyone. Except me. The confrontation. The Thai food was getting cold on the dining room table when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting it to be Vanessa, but there she stood, mascara streaked down her face, still wearing that expensive blazer from our meeting. Is Tom here? She demanded, her voice hoarse from crying. Not yet. I stepped aside. But please, come in. I ordered plenty of food. She hesitated, then stormed past me into the house. Her eyes darted around our living room, taking in the photos of Tom and me, the life she'd been promised fragments of. Our wedding portrait on the mantel seemed to catch her attention, Tom and I 20 years younger, smiling with the genuine hope of a shared future. This is insane, she muttered. This whole thing is insane. The pad thai is excellent, I said, gesturing to the table. Though I'm sure you know that, since Tom took you there 3 times last month. On my credit card, the front door opened. Tom walked in, stopping dead when he saw us both. For a moment, he looked exactly like the boy in the fairy tale caught with his hand in the cookie jar, stunned that his 2 separate worlds had collided. What the hell is this? He sputtered, his carefully maintained composure evaporating. Dinner, I said cheerfully. Sit down, honey. Vanessa and I were just about to discuss your investment strategies. You had no right. He pointed at me, face reddening. Those accounts were funded with my income. Income I earned, I finished, which makes every transfer you made illegal. Want to explain to Vanessa where her luxury lifestyle really came from? Vanessa turned to Tom, hands shaking. You said the money was yours. You said you were a financial genius. Baby, I can explain. Don't baby me. She pulled out her phone. Look at this. Everything's gone. The house deposit, the investment accounts. Everything. It's just a temporary setback. Tom tried to approach her, but she backed away. Once I sort things out with Nathan. Nathan? I laughed. He's meeting with the compliance board right now. Those irregular transfers you've been pushing through? They're very interested in those. Tom's face went from red to white. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone, dialed, and put it on speaker. Margaret? Nathan's voice filled the room. Just finished the meeting. They're launching a full investigation. Tom lunged for the phone, but I stepped back. Thanks, Nathan. Keep me posted. You vindictive bitch. Tom spat. You're trying to destroy me. No, honey. I sat down at the dining table, serving myself some noodles. You did that all by yourself. I'm just making sure the consequences land where they should. Vanessa had been quiet, scrolling through her phone. The charity, she said suddenly. The one you sent the money to. It's legitimate. They help women who've been. She looked at Tom with dawning horror. How many others were there before me? What? Tom and I said simultaneously. She turned her phone around. showing a social media post from Second Chance. There was a photo of a woman who looked remarkably like Vanessa, sharing her story of being deceived by her married boyfriend who'd promised her a future funded by stolen money. I found 3 similar stories on their page. Vanessa's voice cracked. All from the last 2 years, all involving financial advisors. I sat down, my fork paused midway to my mouth. This was unexpected. I knew about the charity's work, but not about these specific cases. This was better than I'd planned. It suggested Tom's pattern extended beyond just me and Vanessa. Tom's face had gone gray. They're lying. Like you lied about being unhappily married. Vanessa cut in, finding strength in her anger. Like you lied about the money. Like you're lying right now. Vanessa, please. Save it. She grabbed her bag. I've already spoken to the compliance board. They're very interested in my side of the story. Tom moved to block her path. You can't. Actually, she can. I stood up. And she should. In fact, Olivia from Second Chance would love to hear your story, Vanessa. She's helped many women rebuild their lives after men like Tom used them. Don't pretend you're some kind of saint. Tom turned on me, desperation making him cruel. You orchestrated this whole thing. No, I just exposed it. I smiled. The Thai food's getting cold. By the way, Vanessa reached for the door, then paused. She unclasped the Cartier watch and set it on the entry table. Keep it, she said to me. Sell it. Donate it to the charity. I don't want anything from him anymore. After she left, Tom and I stood in silence, the untouched food between us like a battlefield. 20 years of marriage, reduced to cold noodles and mutual hatred. I'll destroy you for this, he finally said, but the threat sounded hollow. With what? I picked up the watch, its weight substantial in my palm. Your clever investments? Your stellar reputation? I met his eyes, no longer afraid of what I might see there. Face it, Tom. The game is over, and you lost. My phone buzzed a text from Olivia. Compliance board called. They want to meet tomorrow. Bring documentation. I showed it to Tom, watching the last of his bravado crumble. You should pack a bag, I suggested. But I'd avoid Mauritius if I were you. Extradition treaties, you know. He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Maybe he was. The food's really getting cold, I said, sitting back down. But then again, revenge is a dish best served that way, isn't it? Compliance Board President Mr. Wilson, your decision? The head investigator's voice pulled me back to the present, to the compliance boardroom where my husband's career was about to end. Tom stared at the papers before him, the evidence of his deception, the agreements, the divorce papers. His carefully constructed world had crumbled, leaving him with only one choice. Fine, he spat, grabbing a pen. You win. No, Tom. I stood up, gathering my things. Nobody wins in situations like this. Some of us just lose less than others. As I walked out, Olivia fell into step beside me. You okay? Better than okay. I glanced back at the conference room where Tom was mechanically signing away his life. The charity will put his restitution to good use. And you? She asked. What will you do now? Through the glass, I could see Vanessa, Grace, and Sophia talking quietly, their shared experience creating an unexpected bond. Grace, I'd learned, was a kindergarten teacher whose savings Tom had decimated 3 years ago. Sophia was a nurse who'd immigrated from Puerto Rico, building a new life that Tom had nearly destroyed. Sometimes healing comes from the most surprising places, I said, watching the 3 women exchange phone numbers. Now, I smiled. Now I'm going to help other women recognize the Thomas Wilsons of the world before they strike. Starting with that marketing campaign, I promise your charity. After all, the best revenge isn't just about getting even, it's about making sure it never happens again. Flashback, my mother's warning. Men like your father are rare, Margaret, my mother had told me 2 weeks before my wedding. We were sitting in her hospital room, the cancer already spreading faster than the doctors could manage. I've watched Tom charm everyone, including me. But remember what I've always taught you: look at what people do, not just what they say. Mom, Tom is wonderful, I'd insisted, holding her frail hand. He supports my career. He's smart. He makes me laugh. She smiled weakly. I hope you're right, sweetheart. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Keep your own emergency fund. Something he doesn't know about. She'd squeeze my hand with surprising strength. Every woman needs a parachute, just in case. I'd laughed it off then, but I'd done as she asked, setting aside a small portion of each paycheck in an account Tom never knew existed. 20 years later, that account would pay for the expert forensic accountant who tracked every penny Tom had stolen. My mother had seen something in Tom that I'd been too in love to notice. A glimmer of his father, perhaps the man Tom had described as successful but distant. I later learned distant meant abandon his family for a younger woman. History doesn't just repeat itself. Sometimes it improves its technique. The aftermath. He's trying to back out of the agreement, Diane announced, bursting into my office a week later. Nathan just called. Tom's claiming coercion. I didn't look up from my laptop where I was finalizing the second chance marketing campaign. Let him try. Aren't you worried? 3, 2, 1. My phone rang. And that would be his lawyer. I put it on speaker. Hello, Richard. Margaret. The lawyer sounded exhausted. We need to discuss your husband's concerns. Ex-husband, I corrected, the divorce having been finalized in record time. And let me save us both some time. I clicked a few keys on my laptop. Check your email. There was a pause, then the sound of typing. What am I looking at? Tom's entire digital footprint. Every email, text, and bank transfer he thought he deleted. Plus statements from 6 more women who've come forward since our meeting. 6. Diane mouthed silently, eyes wide. I'll talk to him, Richard sighed. But Margaret, he's desperate. Desperate people do stupid things. I'm counting on it, I said, ending the call. Diane sat down across from me. What does that mean? Before I could answer, my office door flew open. Tom stormed in, looking disheveled. His normally perfectly styled hair was unkempt, his expensive suit wrinkled. Security is on their way, my assistant called from behind him. It's fine, Sarah, I said calmly. This won't take long. Tom slammed his hands on my desk. You've ruined everything. The firm suspended me, my accounts are frozen, and now these women are coming out of nowhere with their lies. Are they lies, Tom? I pulled up a spreadsheet, turning the screen so he could see it. Because the numbers don't lie. $250,000 total, spread across 9 women in 3 years. Very consistent pattern. I want my money back. Your money? I stood up slowly. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about how you used my income to fund your elaborate schemes. How you manipulated vulnerable women with promises you never intended to keep. How you think you're so clever, he sneered. But you're just like them. Desperate for attention. Desperate to feel powerful. No, Tom. I'm nothing like your victims. I'm the one who stopped you. Security appeared at the door. Tom ignored them. I'll destroy you, he threatened. I'll tell everyone what a vindictive, manipulative. Tell them what? I interrupted, nodding to Dan, who started recording on her phone. That your wife caught you stealing? That multiple women have proof of your fraud? That you're facing potential criminal charges unless you honor our agreement? His face contorted. And there it is, I said quietly. The real Tom. Not the charming financial advisor, not the caring boyfriend, just an angry man who got caught. One of the security guards stepped forward. Should we remove him? Actually, a new voice said, We'll take it from here. 2 men in suits appeared behind security, badges out. Mr. Wilson? SEC enforcement. We'd like to ask you some questions about certain irregular trading patterns we've noticed. Tom's face went from red to gray. I need my lawyer. Of course, one agent said. You can call him from our office. As they led Tom away, Diane let out a low whistle. You called the SEC? No, I smiled. Nathan did. Turns out Tom's creative accounting went way beyond personal accounts. The firm's internal audit found some very interesting discrepancies. My phone buzzed a text from Olivia. Turn on the news. I grabbed the remote. switching on the office TV. A reporter stood outside Tom's firm. Multiple allegations of financial misconduct. Sources say the investigation began after several women came forward with similar stories of deception and fraud. Diane stared at the screen. You leaked it to the press? No. I switched off the TV. Vanessa did. Turns out she's quite good at social media strategy, after all, and quite motivated to make sure Tom can't do this to anyone else. My assistant appeared at the door. Margaret, Olivia's here with the campaign mock-ups. Olivia walked in carrying a portfolio. Ready to see how we're going to help other women spot the Thomas Wilsons of the world? I gestured to my conference table. Show me. She laid out the designs. Powerful images of women reclaiming their lives, their finances, their dignity. The tagline read, Your trust has value. Don't let anyone steal it. It's perfect, I said softly. Almost perfect, Diane corrected, showing us her phone. Breaking news. Tom's firm has suspended him pending investigation. His assets were frozen. His reputation is in tatters. Now it's perfect, I agreed. Olivia squeezed my hand. You know, when you first came to me, I worried revenge would consume you. But you turned it into something bigger. Because it was never just about revenge, I said, looking at the campaign materials. It was about justice. And justice, I smiled as another news alert about Tom popped up, is a dish best served to everyone. Diane raised her coffee cup. To karma. No. I shook my head, picking up my own cup. To consequences. And making sure they find their way home. At the charity event 1 month later, the community center buzzed with energy as I watched Vanessa take the stage. She transformed from victim to advocate, her voice steady as she addressed the packed room. I thought I was special, she told the audience. He made me feel chosen. But I was just another mark in his con game. Today, I help other women recognize the signs I missed. From my spot near the back, I could see Grace and Sophia nodding. They'd found their voices, too, each adding their stories to our growing network of survivors. My phone vibrated a news alert about Tom. He'd pleaded guilty to multiple fraud charges. No jail time, but permanent disbarment from financial services and mandatory restitution to all victims. Quite a turnout, Nathan said, appearing beside me with 2 glasses of champagne. The firm's partners are impressed. They're talking about making Second Chance our permanent pro bono client. Good. I accepted a glass. They owe us that much, considering they missed Tom's schemes for years. Speaking of Tom, Nathan nodded toward the entrance. Tom stood there, looking smaller somehow in his off-the-rack suit. The designer clothes had been sold to fund restitution payments. Our eyes met across the room. He started walking over. Want me to call security? Nathan asked. No, I said. Let him come. Tom stopped a few feet away, hands shoved in his pockets. Nice event. It is, I agreed. Though you're not on the guest list. I know. He glanced around at the women whose lives he'd affected. I wanted to see what you built from the wreckage I created. Did you expect me to crash and burn? Honestly, yes. He smiled bitterly. I thought without me, you'd fall apart. Instead, you turned my mess into a movement. His face softened briefly, showing a glimpse of the man I thought I'd married. My father did the same thing, you know. To my mother. I watched her collapse when he left. I swore I'd never be like him, but somehow, you became exactly like him, I finished. The difference is, your mother didn't have the resources or support that women can find today. He nodded, looking around the room. That's the difference between us, Margaret. I saw people as stepping stones. You see them as bridges. Olivia approached, her expression ice cold. Is there a problem here? No problem, Tom said quickly. I'm leaving. I just wanted to say. He paused. I'm sorry. Not that it matters now. You're right, I said. It doesn't. As he turned to go, I called after him. Tom, that Cartier watch you bought Vanessa? We auctioned it last week. Raised enough to fund 3 women's legal fees. He nodded once and walked away. I watched him disappear into the night, No longer the monster under my bed, just a cautionary tale for our next support group. You okay? Olivia asked. Better than okay. I gestured to the room full of women supporting women. This is what winning really looks like. Diane joined us, grinning. Wait till you hear this. That blog post about Tom's schemes just went viral. Women are flooding our hotline with similar stories. Good, I said. Direct them to Vanessa's workshop. She's launching a financial literacy program next week, using Tom's restitution money to fund it. Perfect symmetry, Olivia added with satisfaction. On stage, Vanessa was wrapping up. And remember, your worth isn't measured by someone else's lies. It's measured by your own truth. The crowd erupted in applause. I watched as women hugged, exchanged numbers, formed connections. Some cried, recognizing their own stories in others. Some laughed, celebrating their freedom from similar situations. Margaret, my assistant, appeared. The reporter from the Financial Times is here for your interview. Tell her I'll be right there. I turned to Diane. Ready to help me tell the whole story? The whole story? She raised an eyebrow. Even the part about redirecting his offshore accounts? Especially that part, I smiled. It's time everyone learned how to fight back, legally and strategically. As we headed toward the interview, I passed the charity's new billboard mock-up. It showed a woman standing in her power. The tagline bold beneath, "Your trust has value. So do you." The reporter stood as we approached. Ms. Wilson, your campaign has sparked a national conversation about financial abuse in relationships. Did you expect this level of impact? I thought about Tom's face when he realized he'd lost everything, about Vanessa finding her voice, about Grace and Sophia rebuilding their lives, about all the women who would now recognize the warning signs we'd missed. Actually, I said, this is exactly what I expected. Because the thing about karma is, it works best when we help it along. Diane squeezed my hand as the reporter hit record. Behind us, another group of women entered the event, each carrying their own story, ready to turn their pain into power. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was revolution. And it was just beginning. So, the reporter leaned forward. Tell me how it all started. I smiled, thinking of that nursing home bill that had changed everything. It started with a number that didn't add up. Epilogue 6 months later. I stood at my grandmother's bedside, arranging the fresh flowers I'd brought to her room at Sunset Gardens. At 86, her mind was increasingly foggy, but today was a good day. She recognized me immediately, her blue eyes so like mine lighting up. There's my Maggie, she said, patting the space beside her. Tell me about your day. I sat down, taking her fragile hand in mine. I finalized the deal with Harvard Business Review today. They're publishing my article on financial abuse next month. My smart girl, she beamed. Always knew you'd do important things. I had a good teacher, I said, thinking of the woman who'd raised me after my parents died, who'd worked extra shift to help put me through college, who'd taught me the value of independence. How's that husband of yours? She asked, the dementia momentarily shifting her timeline. We divorced, Graham, remember? Last year. Good, she said firmly, surprising me. Never did like him. Too slick. Like someone playing a part. I laughed. You never told me that. Didn't want to hurt your feelings. But mothers know, she said, then corrected herself. Grandmothers too. As I drove home to my new apartment is smaller than the brownstone I'd shared with Tom, but filled with only things I loved, I thought about the journey of the past year. The betrayal, the rage, the cold calculation of revenge, and finally, the unexpected peace that came with letting go. My phone rang through the car speakers. Second chance, Margaret Wilson speaking. Ms. Wilson? This is Elaine Garner from the governor's office. We'd like to invite you to join the state task force on financial abuse prevention. Another piece falling into place. The work expanding, reaching more women, creating real change. I'd be honored, I said. Later that evening, as I prepared for my weekly dinner with Diane, I paused at my bookshelf and picked up the framed photo of my parents on their wedding day. They looked so young, so hopeful. Dad in his rented tux, Mom in her simple white dress, both of them grinning like they'd won the lottery. You were right, Mom, I said to the photograph. I did need that parachute. The doorbell rang Diane with takeout and wine, right on time. Guess who called today? I asked as we settled onto my couch. The governor's office, she said, grinning. Olivia already told me. We're celebrating. She raised her glass. To second chances. To second chances, I echoed. And to the wisdom of mothers, the strength of women standing together, and the power of numbers that finally add up.